negro y todos me señalaron. Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice? ¿Quién explota? ¿Quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
My name is Baroud Jr. I am a former member of the original Black Panther Party, but at this moment, I have been held captive for almost a half of a century. On July 7th, 2023, our beloved Matola Shakur made his journey to join the ancestors. What can be said? When words can't go there, what can be said? When such a big, loving heart ceases to beat. When words can't go there, what can be said of such a brilliant mind that can no longer think? When words can't go there, what can be said of an unconquerable spirit that has inspired so many and now must rest? When words can't go there, what can be said of a giant of a man who dedicated his life to the service and liberation of our people? And what about when words must go there? What must be said of our beloved comrade, our beloved brother, our beloved friend, the people's beloved doctor of the incomparable man, Matola Shakur?
This call is from a federal prison.
Matola embodied the legacy of the Black Liberation Army and so much more. There's so many things that must be said about Matola Shakur will come forth on the tongue of history, our continuing story. An old African proverb says, quote, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter until the lion writes his own story, end quote. And so, surely the story cut short in the 72 years of Matola's life will add many pages to our rich and glorious history of struggle for a better life for our people, for a better world free from exploitation and oppression, for a better future. We must remember to whisper above the wind the name Matola Shakur, so that the tale of the hunt will be rightly told. Ashe. All power to the people. Rest in the power, Comrade Matola. I love you. Around. Then I ask, will everyone who can please stand, and if you can, remain seated. Say his name loud 4 times in that one beat direction. Say Matola Shakur, Matola Shakur, Matola Shakur. Shakur. Matula Shakur.
What's happening, good people? It's the Rise Up Morning Show. We're in the building. That was a tribute by veteran political prisoner, former political prisoner, Ramzy Bowers. Ramzy Bowers did 50 years in prison, served 50 years, 30 years he served, and 20 years he was supposed to had maxed out. He was supposed to maxed out after 30, and they held him for an extra 20 years. He was on his way out of the cell, out of the prison, and attorney generals put a hold on him, placed a hold on him, and he ended up getting out earlier this year. In fact, I talked to our comrade earlier today, and he gives the greetings to all of us. That was him speaking. He also plays flute, but in that particular piece, Bilal Sunni Ali, renowned musician, freedom fighters, one of my OGs, veteran Panther, veteran BLA member. He's also a member of Gil Scott-Heron's Midnight Band. He was playing the flute on that particular piece you just heard. That was in tribute to Dr. Matulu Shakur, who made his transition last year. We will be doing a living tribute for Bilal Sunni Ali on this Sunday, right on this platform. We have a number of different freedom fighters joining us on camera. We will have musicians, including the Last Poets, the Midnight Band, which was Gil Scott-Heron's band, and a number of other different veteran Panthers, and some folks you've seen on this platform, some you will see for the first time on this platform. So make sure you tune in on this Sunday live, 4 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. EST, and we will have this tribute to our comrade Bilal Sunni Ali. What's happening, brothers? How y'all doing today? Y'all good?
Doing wonderful,
Peace,
man.
peace,
Rise
peace,
up.
peace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
So
go.
what's up?
Peace.
Listen, man, we're gonna get right on into it because we have, as you all know, it's a lot of things going on right now. We know Israel,
Yes.
they lost their goddamn mind a long time ago. However,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? We know that it's some things going on right now. And we have a guest because that's what we do around here. Boona, you want to introduce the world to our very special guest?
Yeah. Like you said, today we have a very, very special guest. So Dr. Ramzy Baroud, who is a Palestinian American historian, journalist. He's founder and editor of the Palestine Chronicle, an online news outlet that he founded actually in 1999. So that was almost 25 years ago. And an online news outlet that is probably one of the best resources on the struggle of the people of Palestine. So the Palestine Chronicle is also edited in French and Italian. So really recommend our audience to visit on a regular basis Palestine Chronicle website, which is palestinechronicle.com. And for those who can, also donate. So we'll probably share it later on the screen of the Palestine Chronicle website. I'm trying to do it right now. so people can see. Okay, I'll do it later. Anyways, like I said, Ramzy Baroud is an author. He has actually authored several books, including some books that I'm going to show you now. So the second Palestinian Intifada. Okay, thank you for that. This is the website of the Palestine Chronicle that is available in English, French, and Italian. So you get the most updated information and analysis, not only on Palestine, but also the implication of the Palestinian struggle for freedom throughout the region and also globally. Because as I will discuss, Ramzy has also written articles and books about international solidarity, including solidarity between the Palestinian struggle and the South African struggle. So going back to the books that Dr. Ramzy Baroud wrote, one of them is this one. I have the French copy, but is the second Palestinian Intifada that was published in 2006. There is another book that he published because Ramzy is actually from Gaza. He was born in Gaza, so he wrote a book on Gaza, resistance in Gaza. Here again, I have the French copy, but the original title is "My Father Was Freedom Fighter: Gaza's Untold Story," published in 2010. Another book that I would like to show, which I really recommend people to read, "The Last Earth." Okay, this book, A Palestinian Story, which has been published recently in Italian. This one on political prisoners, okay, will be broken. It's one of the most recent books that he wrote, and the latest book, written with Ilan Pape, which brings together several intellectuals and activists from Palestine, is titled "Our Vision for Liberation: Engage Palestinian Leaders and Intellectuals Speak Out." And just before we came on the show, actually 10 minutes ago, I received a French copy of the book from the editor. So it was sent to me today. And yeah, this is great because we hope to have Ramzy very soon in Europe, hopefully in France, for a tour that, yeah, maybe we can discuss it later on. So Ramzy, who is very busy, as you know, we receive a lot of requests. We're very grateful to you for accepting our invitation. So yeah, thank you again for accepting our invitation, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show.
Thank you very much for having me and for the kind introduction and just really for including the Palestinian voice in Rise Up. It's our cause is essentially the same. It's the same struggle. As we all know that justice is indivisible. So we cannot look at injustice anywhere in the world and just assume that it's an isolated incident. To the contrary, the global fight for justice and truth is one and the same. And what's happening in Palestine right now, in my opinion, is not just a provisional or a regional fight, but it's rather a global fight. The outcome of this is going to have consequences on the rest of the world for years and years to come. So thanks again.
Thank you. So we've actually drafted some questions that we wanted to ask you today, but we had to update them because there are so many, developments that are changing the whole, regional forces, and also having impacts on the. I was about to say conflict, but it's not a conflict. It's a genocidal war, both in Lebanon and Palestine, and also regional invasions in Iran, Yemen, etc. So the first question I wanted to ask you was how the genocidal campaign that the Zionist settler colonial state has launched initially in Gaza almost a year ago was extended to Lebanon with carpet bombing that have killed thousands of Lebanese people over the past few weeks. And also resulted in the displacement of at least 1 million Lebanese, including some of them who migrated to Syria, who entered Syria, around 100,000 based on the latest figures that I got from the UN. So on Friday, September 27th, US made fighter jets dropped 85 US made bunker buster bombs weighing 2,000 pounds each, correct me if I'm wrong, in a densely populated residential area in Beirut, resulting in the automatic destructions of 6 buildings that were flattened. So while most Western media have been commenting and actually celebrating the assassination of Hezbollah Secretary General Said Hassan Nasrallah and other top leaders of Hezbollah who were attending that meeting. So while the Western media has been celebrating actually the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, the thousands of civilians who have been killed in the same process during the same bombing have been literally overlooked. Okay, and not even to mention the pager and walkie-talkie explosions that occurred the week before, that were actually also celebrated as a technical achievement from Israel. So there were thousands of people who were killed, but they have been totally overlooked in the Western media. So my question is to Ramzy. So as a journalist, political analyst, and activist, how do you account for the indifference of mainstream Western media to the death of tens of thousands of people in the Arab world, not only in Gaza and the West Bank, but also now in Lebanon?
Right. Thank you for that question. I think maybe we need a little bit of not definitions, but redefinitions of some of the role that is being played by mainstream Western media. I think one of the mistakes that we have made, intellectually, I think we've made many mistakes and we made many wrong assumptions about the relationship between Israel on one hand, the United States, and the Western, political structure on the other. We also made a mistake in terms of how we understand and internalize the relationship between Israel and Western media. Um, I reject the notion that America is just a pro-Israel entity. Is America is not a pro-Israel entity. The Western media is not pro-Israel media. They are essentially one and the same. They are part of the same apparatus. And why this is important? Why it's important that we stop making this silly separation that American imperialism and Western imperialism in the Middle East is kind of a different political entity with different political relationships to the region. It's just because we continue to appeal to the Western to Western morality, to Western ethics. To We keep talking about double standards. We keep hoping that Western politicians are going to wake up. What will it take them to wake up? What would make America, Washington, the White House conscientious enough, or where they will draw some sort of a boundary and say, okay, listen, you kill a certain number of Palestinians, and that's okay. But we're going to put our foot down when it reaches, let's say, genocide or mass extermination. From the very beginning, I argued that there is no line to be crossed. There is no line to be crossed. We wasted so much time assuming that there is a line. And now America has to wake up. And now, and so forth and so on. And at the end of the day, there was never a line. I am telling you, if Israel kills every single Palestinian in Gaza right now, the United States will not change its policies, not in the least. They would issue statements, and I will tell you in advance what these statement headlines are going to read. We are looking at the situation with great concern. We call on all parties to, exercise restraints. We always say that targeting civilians is not something that we support, and we hope that Israel will maintain some kind of proportionate response. But Israel does have the right to defend itself. Now, if you would say, Ramsey, you are exaggerating, who would have expected that the number of Palestinians who are killed and wounded and are still in the process of being exterminated in Gaza would reach the point where it is right now? And the Western world is still nodding their head in agreement that Israel has the right to defend itself. We thought that there is a line, but there was never ever a line. The medical journal, a famous medical journal in Britain, came up with this study that said, and that was in
It's
July.
Lancet, right? Lancet.
The Lancet Medical Journal. They came up with this study that was last July, and they said if the war is to stop today, I think the date might have been July 31st. I can't remember exactly, but if the war was to stop today, the number of those killed, missing, likely to die as a result of wounds that do not have, because they don't have access to medical facilities in Gaza anymore. And as a result of the consequences of the war, meaning the water pollution, the diseases that are curable easily and they are not being attended to, and so forth and so on. Not the wounded, just the dead alone, according to the Lancet magazine, is 186,000 Palestinians. We are looking at a population of nearly 2 million in Gaza. So if you look, and this is just the dead, add the wounded, which usually is about 1 to 3 of, so you are looking here possibly at about several 100,000 wounded. This is extermination. This is the Holocaust. This is not fears of something bad may happen if we do not intervene. No, it has happened now. If the war stops now, it has already happened. So there will be no waking up. There is no moral threshold. Mark my words. There is no moral threshold where the United States and the West, its Western conglomerate, would come and say enough is enough to Israel. The same thing applies to Western media. I mean, we understand how Western media operates. Noam Chomsky has written about this in Manufacturing Consent, but even years and years before Chomsky's theories about the subject, the likes of the great Italian anti-fascist intellectual Antonio Gramsci has elaborated on the issue of cultural hegemony and the role of media and how it's part of the superstructure. We all know this. Academically, we know it. Effectively, practically, we also know it. We have seen it. You are not going to see a break up happening anytime soon between mainstream media and Israel. Because again, back to the issue of definitions, it's corporate media. Because mainstream media is divided to two parts. One is corporate media, and one is mainstream. One is state-run media, like Voice of America, the BBC. Right? These are government funded, so naturally they are not going to be taking a position that is separate from the position of the governments themselves. That's a done deal. Okay, so we move this aside. Then you have corporate media. Well, just look at the word corporate. Corporate means that it's the interest of corporations. And most of these media conglomerates and corporations are linked financially to bigger companies, to weapon manufacturers. They have their own contracts and business with the states. Do you think that a corporation with billions of dollars at stake is going to start taking a moral position because they really care about the children of Jabalia, or the children of Mali, or the children of South Africa, or the children of anybody who does not fit into the business interest of that corporation? So this is why I started, and I apologize if I was a little bit too harsh in that sentence, that we have all got it wrong, because we continue to operate with the mindset that there is a moral threshold. It's not for, if not for governments, it will be somewhere for the media, and the media is going to wake up and is going to teach the truth, and the people are going to rise against the, their governments, and they are going to demand justice in Gaza. That is not going to happen. What you are doing is what matters. What you are doing, if it's multiplied, what rise up, if it's multiplied at a grassroots level, and it is in millions of different manifestations on social media, in independent radio, community TV, community newspapers, grassroots run independent media initiatives. It is this collective work of ours that is defeating, not will defeat, that is already defeating Israeli Western propaganda, because we know the numbers have been telling us long ago, since the start of this war, Long ago, they have been telling us that majority of people worldwide sympathize with the Palestinians, not with Israel. Absolute majority in the 90 percentiles. Okay, this did not happen randomly. This did not happen by miracle. It happened because of the work that you do, that we do, and that millions of people around the world in their own various capacities are doing as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ramsey. I think you don't need to apologize for. I think all of us
Absolutely not. Yeah,
totally agree with what you said regarding the morality of Western leaders and Western media, because I think some of us are still in the delusion that there might be some point in history where people will understand, but that's just naivete that we should get rid of. So yeah, definitely, totally agree with you. So as mentioned earlier, so on last Friday on September 27th, um, 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 the Israeli settler colonial state actually assassinated Said Hassan Nasrallah, the longtime Secretary General of Hezbollah. He took over in 1992, taking over from the former leader who was assassinated by the Israelis as well. Sorry, he was assassinated on September 28th. But before Hassan Nasrallah, actually the week before Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated, several other high-ranking Hezbollah officials were killed, and these include Nabil Kawouk. Sorry if I mispronounce the names. Deputy head of Hezbollah Central Council was assassinated on September 28th. I think this was the day after Said Hassan Nasrallah, or the same day. Then there was also Mohammed Surur, head of Hezbollah drone unit, who was assassinated on September 27. Ibrahim Obesi, head of Hezbollah missile unit, who was assassinated on September 24th. Ali Karaki, leader of Hezbollah Southern Front, who was assassinated on September 27. Ahmed Wahbi, commander of the Radwan forces, was assassinated on September 21st. Ibrahim Aqil, commander of the elite Radwan as well, the day before Wahbi on September 20th. And before that, in late July, on July 30th, Fuad Shakur was another senior military leader of Hezbollah, actually number two of Hezbollah military leadership, if I'm not mistaken, was assassinated in Beirut one day before Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. So I wanted to ask you how significant these losses are for Hezbollah, because the Zionists seem to be very enthusiastic about their so-called, tactical successes. And like I said, the media, Western pro-Zionist media, have also been celebrating these assassinations. So how significant these losses are for Hezbollah, and what impact will it have, or does it already have, on the capacity of Hezbollah, which the Israeli claim to have degraded in a significant way?
So we are political analysts. We are activists. We deal with discourses. We deal with language. We don't have exact access, or we don't have any access really to what is happening, behind closed doors, or what's happening within the intelligence units, and we can't even trust what we are being told by mainstream media, because there's a lot of misinformation, deliberate misinformation intended to confuse us regarding what is actually happening. But we can look at language. I must admit that the series of assassinations reaching top leaders within Hezbollah, and prior to that, the assassination of Ismail Haniya, and prior to that, the assassination of Saleh Al Aruri, the top Hamas leader, or the Hamas official responsible for Hamas outside Palestine. All of these things were quite alarming in terms of um, why is Israel doing this and what they are trying to achieve. Now, Israel was trying to do something different. And I use the word desperation to describe what the Israelis are doing. I mean, how can you be desperate and at the same time you are killing people? And that's where the element of language comes in. The Israelis, since October 7th, there's something that happened to the collective Israeli psyche. Okay. And we know that victory and defeat is largely a mental state, largely a mental state. Um, Courage is something that comes from the heart. Strength is a physical manifestation. So you could be a very muscular, strong guy, but you have no courage in your heart. But you could be maybe someone physically weak, but you have a lot of courage. So courage and strength is two different things. Israel lost its courage after October 7th. This idea that we have established ourselves as the dominant military power in the region. We are the ones who determine war, the scope of war, the timing of war, how it starts, how it ends, how it's carried out, how it's conducted. The rules of engagement, the rules of war are completely imposed and defined by us. And we have an insurance company. There's an insurance company. It's called the United States. It's one of the best insurance companies you could possibly have. Basically, you can wreck your car, you can burn your house, you can do whatever you want, you can be taken to court anywhere at any time, and that insurance company is gonna back you up under any circumstance. So the Israelis basically were, the kings of the hill, as they say, until October 7 happened, and something broke down in the system, and it was largely psychological. The Israeli intelligence was humiliated. The Israeli military was degraded. And when they tried to retrieve it by going to Gaza, they lost half of their tanks. At least 1,500. The infamous Merkava tanks were destroyed in Gaza. And they were destroyed by children, by kids who are making their own weapons in basements underground. And there was no way out of it. So they go to Lebanon, because now you can't beat up this guy, you go and pick up on another guy. But Hezbollah is not a weak organization. Okay, we know that Hezbollah has the capabilities that are by far exceed that anything that Hamas and all Palestinian movements in Gaza and the West Bank combined have. So why do you go and pick up on Hezbollah? Well, that's where the first element of desperation comes in. The second thing that Israel has done is they thought, well, a land invasion is not possible. I mean, a mass land invasion right now is not possible because our army is in tatters. People are running away from the war. We are so desperate that we are taking the poor refugees coming from Sudan and other parts of Africa. And I wrote about this recently. And we put them in concentration camps, literally concentration camps, according to Beit Salem and Human Rights Watch, in the Naqab Desert, in order for us to ship them back to Africa, just throw them anywhere, in Eritrea, anywhere, right? Now we are going to them and say, hey, my friends, would you like to stay in Israel? Come on, you just need to join the army for a few months and we'll just give you the papers. Many of them sadly joined, and not a single one got their papers or permanent resident in Israel so far, according to Israeli media, according to Haaretz in particular, right? Again, desperation. But then they thought, okay, one of the elements of the Israeli power that was degraded was intelligence. Okay, and the other element is the military. We cannot win a ground war, but at least we can restore the reputation of the intelligence. Thus, the assassinations. This is all about Israel trying to flex its muscles and to tell people to have them second guess themselves, as in Arabs walking in the streets of Paris. And I have friends here in Washington, wanting to change their cell phones because they are worried that's going to blow up in their faces at any given point. That fear that Israel was now restoring, that's what deterrence is, psychological process. People are afraid of their pagers, their cell phones, their computers, their friends' computers and cell phones. So there's now sense of triumph is starting to get back. And now assassinating the top leadership of Hezbollah, the top military leadership, the top leadership of the Rizwan, the powerful and notorious Hezbollah commandos, the top leadership in a single strike. Now we know that this cannot possibly be the work of Israel. We know that. Maybe the Israeli airplanes are the ones that dropped the bombs, but this cannot be the work of Israel. And I can prove that very easily. Not only because of what happened in October 7, because obviously they had no idea what was going on. And for hours, they did not know what was going on. but also because for a whole year they have been in Gaza and they are still operating with very little intelligence. They don't know what's happening in Gaza. Imagine all of these American, British drones, Israeli drones, Italian intelligence. There is a unit in the so called Gaza envelope. It's an intelligence unit where Americans, Israelis, Italians, British, and French are all that have the best of their intelligence working around the clock to try to find any information about the resistance in Gaza. And they still cannot get to anybody. How is that possible? Yet at the same time, you go and you eliminate all the leadership of Hezbollah in country. So it is definitely a big shocker, but at the same time, it can't be the work of Israel alone. This is an operation that has been carried out with total American, not only intelligence and Western intelligence, but direct involvement as well, right? But of course, as usual, is the Israelis who are taking. I mean, Netanyahu has been doing this victory lap for days now. I mean, you should see what Israel has been one massive celebration, giving baklava as an Arabic dessert, oddly enough, in celebration of the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. And then, as we speak right now, Iranian missiles are raining in on Israel, all of Israel. Deterrence, reset button, we are back. So that triumph was short lived. And it indicates that whatever Israel does, it is temporary. There is something that has fundamentally shifted after October 7, that everything that Israel has tried to do to restore it, they can't. It's like I have a sister who works in a hospital in the emergency ward in the hospital, and I've been there to visit her several times, and I've seen many sad things happening at the hospital where you have a person who is essentially dead, and you have all the doctors piling on that person trying to resuscitate that person to bring him back to life, until one doctor after the other reaches the conclusion that it's too late. That person is dead. No matter what you do, you can't bring him back to life. October 7 has killed something in Israel. It showed the military limits that can be achieved, or the political objectives that can be achieved through military limits in Israel. Israel cannot do what it wants anymore based on its military prowess. It restored Palestinians back to the center of the discussion on the Middle East. Normalization has now become a joke. Let's remember, it was in September 2023 when Netanyahu stood in front of the world in the United Nations General Assembly with a map of the Middle East that completely erased Palestine and the Palestinians. And he said, Palestinians are but 2% of the total Arab population. I think it's unfair that they have a veto power over peace treaties with the Arabs. I mean, that was the logic. And who rose? The Palestinians rose, but not any Palestinians, not our leadership. This is why I keep telling people this is all about grassroots work, people. Long term achievements in politics can only happen through grassroots work. Our leadership is as collaborating as any collaborating government with any Nazi fascist regime throughout history. It's the people of Gaza who rose. The people of Gaza who rose and restored the equation, restored the centrality of the Palestinians, reclaimed the Palestinian narrative, put the conversation back in Palestine. And Netanyahu is devastated. He has spent his entire life, the longest serving prime minister of Israel's history. What's his name? Thomas Friedman refers to him, well, he described him as the worst Israeli leader, but the worst leader in the history of the Jewish people. It means that the Zionists, including Thomas Friedman in the New York Times, have internalized their relationship with Israel and Israeli leaders to be that of leaders of the Jewish people throughout thousands of years of history. Imagine this man who thought he was the greatest Israeli leader in history, who made a promise. He said, I will be the first Jewish leader who's going to take the state of Israel to live past its 80th year. There's the curse of the collapse of Israel before it turns 80. This is the very man who has humiliated Israel more than anybody else. So everything, and this is why I do not agree with this thing, is like, oh, everything Netanyahu is trying to do is just for personal reasons. Oh, he just wants to keep his government intact. Oh, he just doesn't want to go to prison. Sure, all of these are important consideration, but there's a much bigger consideration. Netanyahu, the man who thought he was the greatest leader in the history of the Jewish people, is, in his own mind, is the one who actually destroyed Israel. So the assassinations, all of these high stake gambles, is just a sign of his desperation. But when it comes to the reality on the ground, nothing has changed. What happened today in Israel, as far as their failure at the military and intelligence front, is another October 7th. It just happened as we speak right now. It's the Iran and Hezbollah and the Palestinians have pushed the reset button once more. What can Netanyahu do about it? Who is beyond Hassan Nasrallah that you are going to assassinate? You see, so this is where the total Israeli collapse that took place on October 7, reaffirmed every day since October 7, is being reaffirmed once more, almost exactly 1 year since October 7.
Hey, greetings, Dr. Ramzy. Hey, appreciate you being on the platform. I'm like sitting over here soaking in everything that you're saying. You're giving me chills right now. I have to admit, I appreciate your perspective. I think it's important. So, I'm happy that you're here on Black Power Media having this discussion. I wanted to kind of have a two-part question. I mentioned a few things just now, particularly about Iran, and it's interesting because Iran, as we're having this conversation, at least like in real time, Iran is striking Israel. So another question that I wanted to discuss is the attitude of Iran. Especially now that the genocidal army of the settled colonial Zionist state has invaded Lebanon in a bid to destroy Hezbollah, which is Iran's main ally in the region. So when Ismail Haniyeh, head of the political branch of Hamas, was assassinated in Tehran on July 31st, Iran promised a strong response. Now, they're responding now. Now, I guess like the question is this a strong response too? But let me continue on. Now that Israel has assassinated Hassan Nasrallah and invaded Lebanon, Iran initially didn't attack. It kind of it took a while. And it's interesting. And really quick too, you had said something in regards to Netanyahu's desperation, and after the assassination, assassination of Nasrallah, they were saying his support kind of it increased, right? So it kind of speaks to what you're saying, just like this desperation and trying to change how he'll be viewed in history. Now again, but at the same time, it seems that Israel is desperately looking to get Iran involved in this conflict, which they have, so that they can drag the U.S. into the conflict and force it to launch a war against Iran. And as we, as we're preparing this show, Iran is attacking Israel. So with the U.S. and Israel already threatening Iran of retaliation if it attacks Israel. So my question is, how do you analyze the restraint that Iran had been showing prior to now, and any other thoughts that you have about Iran? And just really quick to add on to that, the media portrayal of what's going on in the Middle East. I wonder if you have any thoughts on how the portrayal of the Middle East crisis to the world is having an impact. Well, having an impact, but I guess like accurate is it being reported? It's not, accurate or precise, but how
is it being reported? Because I know that propaganda can be used to sort of demoralize the world as far as their support, and even those on the ground as far as the continuing fighting against the settled colonial state. So I'm sorry, I know it was a lot.
Absolutely. No, no, the
Yeah.
brilliant point. Okay, so I'm gonna bring Hassan Nasrallah into this. In his first speech, um, sometime early October, might have been October 10th, Hassan Nasrallah, after the war, Hassan Nasrallah made an interesting statement that did not receive a lot of focus in the media analysts, but it really kind of got stuck with me because I know Hassan Nasrallah is very or was very measured in the way he spoke, right? And the Israelis actually believed him more than they believed their own leaders. Like for example, like when Israel assassinates a Lebanese leader, they would say we may have assassinated this person. Not only has the Hezbollah comes and says, in fact, they did assassinate this person. They would also include people that Israel did not even indicate that they have assassinated. You would say, well, from a strategic point of view, why did you reveal all of your cards? But that's the element of trust. When they do that, then you know whatever they say, they do not lie under any circumstance. Love them, hate them, it doesn't matter. When they say it means they do not lie. And he said something very interesting. He said, be patient, he said. This war will not be won with a decisive blow. It will not be won with a decisive blow. It will be won by points. Okay. Now, this is very, very important because in that single sentence, it was the entire strategy of Hezbollah and Iran by extension summarized in these words. It will be won by points. Netanyahu and Israel may be foolish and desperate, but they are not stupid enough that they did not realize that this was a strategy from the very beginning. So Netanyahu started doing everything in his power to lead this into one final fight in which it will be won with a decisive blow. And everything that the other side, the axis of resistance, have done to prevent that from happening. Because a decisive blow means that Israel will be successful in dragging Iran into this fight. And then what is going to happen? That the Americans are going to move in and they are going to destroy all of Iran's, kind of economic civilian facilities, all major strategic buildings, Al Quds Revolutionary Forces headquarters, numerous military camps, degrade their missile capabilities, hit their refineries in the Persian Gulf, all of these areas. Now you would say, but is this gonna destroy? I mean, Iran. I mean, come on. I mean, the Americans have done everything in their power to destroy Iraq, which was under sanctions for many years, and the economy was almost non-existent, and they still, at the end, they had to withdraw. Iran is like several times the size of Iraq, so that is irrational. But it doesn't matter. What really matters is that you send them back years and years. I mean, look at Iraq now. Look at Syria now. Who is rational enough is going to tell you that Iraq and Syria or Libya are political state, they are, political actors. And they have the kind of agency that could alter the equation. Nobody makes that argument. It's over for them for a long time until they rebuild these capabilities. So Israel does not necessarily want an invasion of Iran. They want for the United States to come and degrade Iranian capabilities to send them back years. And in the process of doing so, this is going to create a distraction. Who cares about northern Gaza and Rafah and Beit Hanun and Jabalia? These are provisional local issues. We defeated Iran. The dream that has been hovering over the minds of most Israelis since the invasion of Iraq after they toppled Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party, the argument that was made in American and Israeli media and the neoconservatives in particular, they were saying, we invaded their own country. It's not Iraq that we should go after now, it's Iran. So they did everything that they could to bring that war to fruition, and they have failed. One US administration after the other, not because they care about the lives of the Iranians, but because they understood that the strategic price or the strategic defeat from going to war against Iran in the region could bring China and Russia into the region, and this could weaken American control over that area. But Israel is going to benefit of emerging as the regional power and brings the Saudis back and the Emiratis and the Bahrainis, and the Netanyahu victory lap dance is, I mean, the dance is going to now become a regional triumph in which normalization is going to be back on the table. This is what the whole thing about war against Iran is about. And they haven't gotten it. And the Iranians are aware of it. And this is back to the point about the assassinations. The assassinations are meant to create this impossible equation for Iran to say, you know what? Regional war or no regional war. If we don't do anything now, our star as a regional power is going to wane. Normalization is back on the table. The axis of resistance has been defeated. So they had to do what they had to do from a strategic point of view. But I think they did it in such a decisive way. I mean, I was in that state of disbelief watching all these all these screens on television of missiles falling like meteors on Yafa, on Tel Aviv, on the Naqab. And by the way, every single one of them until now seem to have targeted a military site, an intelligence site, research facility sites. They are not targeting civilians. So all of this, and is still an element of restraint. Now, the Revolutionary Guard issued a statement, and they said, if America would allow Israel to be foolish enough to do what they did again, we are going to come back with even a more destructive response. So I think Iran has restored deterrence, and they have demonstrated, and again, back to the issue of language, because if the Iranians come with this appeasing language after the killing of Nasrallah, and the Hezbollah people came up with this language, well, we are really open to some kind of an arrangement and going back to UN Resolution 1701, then you would know that indeed that language indicates that there has been a feeling of a strategic defeat. But what happened today indicates that nothing has changed as far as the overall capabilities of Hezbollah and Iran, but more importantly, the strategy and the vision of how they see this war ending. Another really important thing I think that has to be said, that the attack by Iran happened during a Palestinian attack on Israeli targets in Yafa, right? So there was an attack in Yafa, and as the ambulance workers are trying to deal with the issue in the Yafa area, the missiles come firing down. So everybody kind of looks up. It means that the Palestinians are, in fact, coordinating with the Iranians. So we are actually talking about what they call the unity of the squares manifesting itself in a much more convincing way than at any point during this war. Hezbollah is firing, Ansarullah is firing from Yemen, the Palestinians carry out an attack inside Israel, the Iranians come with their missiles and hypersonic ballistic missiles thundering from all over Israel. It means that the ball is now back in the American and the Israeli court. Anything beyond this is a nuclear escalation. I can't think of anything that can be confined within the military scope that would be stronger than what Iran has done, because this is how deterrence works. I hit you, you have to hit me harder. You can't hit me at the same level. If you don't hit me harder, it means that I have failed. So what can they do to hit Iran harder? So is there going to be enough reason, enough sensibility within the Western political structure that is going to say, you know what, enough is enough? Because if you hit Iran, Iran is going to stop all the oil shipments coming from the Persian Gulf. The entire world economy is going to collapse following this. Because you have Iran in the Persian Gulf, but guess who you have in the Bab el Mandeb, in the Red Sea, and in the Arab Sea? Ansarullah. Imagine if you shut down the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea and Bab el Mandeb all at the same time. You are looking at over 50% of the entire global shipments of energy supplies coming to the West from those areas. So they still have so many cards. Now, this is really the issue of it all. If the Americans have the gumption to come and say to Israel, enough, enough, because this is going to lead to the kind of consequences that is going to rearrange the global order. And by the way, any struggle of the energy supplies in the Middle East is going to immediately lead to the return of Russia to the global front as an energy supplier. This is something that the Americans don't want to see happening, and especially at this extremely crucial and critical moments in terms of American elections, in terms of the war in Ukraine, and so forth. So it's only the question of, are there enough sensible people, sensible from their own point of view, for their own interest, not mine or yours, but are there enough sensible people who are going to say enough is enough?
Wow. Man, first of all, on behalf of our platform, thank you for coming through and bringing on clarity. Because, of course, and we had a talk about this prior to this particular episode. We talked about how we have, as one comrade pointed out, mercenary media, which would be the state, and we have guerrilla media, which would be what we are attempting to bring here. And we think that part of why Israel is getting their hat handed to them right now is because the guerrillas are rising up. It is folks who are the underdogs. It is the folks who have been, they've been, Israel's been so used to being the big bad bully with the U.S. backing it that they didn't think that it would come a day or a time when they would, pardon my French, I'm going to say this for my French brothers, get their ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? So, we appreciate you coming on and sharing to the platform. Right now, while the focus has been on Lebanon, the genocidal assault in occupied Palestine, in Gaza, and the West Bank has not subsided. We know that since the beginning of the genocidal campaign almost a year ago, almost a year exact, which is beautiful, over 41,000 people have been killed. Earlier this week, Wafa Aludaini, who's a colleague of yours, we understand that he was murdered, killed, and we have our condolences to that. We know that he was a contributor to the Palestine Chronicle, and that he was killed by the genocidal army in Gaza. The resistance to genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, of course, we know it continues, and we know, in fact, that hours ago, that particular genocidal army announced that 4 of its soldiers were injured during combats. What should our audience beware of in terms of recent developments regarding the genocide and resistance in Palestine? And I know that you mentioned earlier about the use of propaganda, the use of media, so on and so forth. What not only can we expect, but how can we continue, just like Iran, just like Yemen, and so on and so forth? How can we continue to blitz this situation? Because we know that corporate media, this mercenary media, has been doing a number on the masses. So what can we expect, and what can we do?
Absolutely. Now, um, um, well, before saying that, the honor and pleasure is truly mine. I mean, I feel like when I speak in an environment like this, I'm not really trying to educate. I'm just trying to build, kind of like, emphasize the importance of our solidarity. We all have so much to learn from you, and we try to impart some of our collective experience onto you, and find the opportunities and how we can actually work together in the future.
Yes, sir.
Um, I always say that whenever I travel in the global north versus the global south, in the global north, I advocate. In the global south, I just build alliances because it already is already there. I was in Kenya recently, and I wasn't, there because I want to teach the Kenyans about what colonialism does to you, and how neo-colonialism operates. I mean, they're way ahead of you in that understanding anyway. The same experience I had in various countries in South America as well. And nobody questions you. Nobody accuses you of being anti-Semitic if you say, if you talk about the rights of your people. Nobody. Nobody questions your resistance and tries to tell you, I don't like when you resist that way, but I like when you resist that way, because they have used all means available to them to resist colonialism and to win the wars of liberation. So it's kind of a different dialogue that we have here, and it's always very reassuring and affirming, honestly, when I'm engaged in this kind of conversation. Um, it's all, I mean, in a way it's all about Gaza, but it's also not about Gaza. um, Gaza is a very small territory, as we all know. It's about 360 or 365 square kilometers. Very, very small. Has, yeah, it has some natural resources, but those kind of new discoveries made in the Mediterranean within Gaza's territorial waters, and it's kind of a new discovery. I wouldn't say that Israel's geostrategic outlook regarding Gaza is because of resources. In fact, I think it might have been Shimon Peres, former Israeli prime minister, who said he dreams of the day he wakes up in the morning. I don't know if it was Rabin or Peres, that he dreams of the day he wakes up to discover that Gaza has been swallowed by the sea, right? So Gaza, from that point of view, is not significant to them. But as I argued in my book, My Father Was a Freedom Fighter, that Gaza is the most important part of Palestine, the most important part of the Middle East. In fact, I would even argue, from a global geopolitical point of view, maybe it's the most precious little entity in the whole world right now, because it has demonstrated that people who might be starving have no access to anything or anywhere. Vast majority of Gazans have never stepped their foot outside of Gaza, this tiny little place where Israel has been counting the calories. This is not my assessment. The Israelis themselves, according to Haaretz newspaper in Israel, says the Israeli military actually counts the calories that are consumed by Gazans, according to Dov Weisglass, who was the former advisor of Ariel Sharon, who used to say, our aim is to simply put the Palestinians on a diet. We just don't want them to die from hunger. And yet that Gaza, with nothing in its disposal to fight back, found a way to fight back, and they are winning back, and they are mobilizing the entire freaking Middle East around them. I have been in so many countries in the last year, and I see ordinary people who are kind of linking up their own community struggles with in Brazil or in southern Italy, linking it to what the outcome of what's happening in Gaza. It is unbelievable the psychological impact of what is happening in Gaza on the Middle East, but also the global collective thinking. So now Gaza represents something that is way more, much bigger than its size or resources or population, right? So Israel has reached a realization that they cannot possibly win against Gaza. I mean, they've been shooting the same targets or blowing up the same targets numerous times. 1,200 mosques, are all the mosques that exist in Gaza, have been destroyed. 3 churches in Gaza have been destroyed. Every hospital has been, even the rubble of hospitals have been blown up. And now the refugee encampments have been blown up. And yet, somehow, they continue to fight. There is no victory in Gaza. So going to Lebanon, going elsewhere, is a desperate search for victory elsewhere, with the hope that that victory is going to depress or is going to weaken the resolve of Gazans, so that Netanyahu may win or may declare some kind of triumph after all. This is how all of this is linked up. Gaza is linked to Lebanon, Lebanon to Iran, Iran to Yemen, Yemen back to Gaza. It's all connected. Now, the narrative we need to push for, I think we are pushing the right narrative. I think in many ways a lot of people are waking up. I see social media influencers who have been discounted as, social media nonsense, this doesn't matter to anybody, speaking the kind of language in which they actually speak about Palestinian resistance. I am in Seattle, talking to you from the city of Seattle. We have an extremely famous singer in Seattle called Macklemore. Macklemore is a global phenomenon. It's like, his songs were top of the charts for years and years. He just produced a music video, a song, in which he talks about Palestinian resistance, showing fighters with their arms, saying that there is no dialogue with Zionism. It is something that is mind-boggling. What is happening in the way that the conversation is changing. But this is also important to note. I've always argued, I wouldn't say I invented the term, but I have always pushed the term or the phrase reclaiming the narrative. Palestinians need to wrestle their narrative away from those who pretend to speak on our behalf. Because God forbid we are a liability to ourselves. We don't know how to speak. We can't win audiences. White people in America are not gonna listen to some Gazan speaking gibberish. No, bring someone else to speak on behalf of the Palestinians. And in the process of doing so, we are actually, over time, we lost our own voice. We are basically secondary actors in the story of the Palestinian political discourse because we are supposed liability. And over the years, we began recovering, reclaiming that Palestinian voice. And it's louder than ever before. But now some people are talking about centering Palestinian voices, centering Palestinian voices. And I warned against this term because there are Palestinians who are collaborating with the enemy as we speak. And by the way, in every liberation war, there's always been those who slept with the enemy. It's always that way. In Algeria, Algeria is, there's this saying in Algeria, and I don't necessarily condone it, or that, so, but it's important, it's telling that during the Revolutionary War in Algeria against French colonialism, they used to say that every soldier should have 10 bullets, one for the French colonizers and 9 for the collaborators with them. Just to show you how powerful the role played by collaborators within the overall liberation struggle. So we have many people who tell you that they speak on behalf of Palestinians. They speak on behalf of their own class. We do have our own class struggle in Palestine. We do have people living in villas and mansions that you've never seen the like of which. And they speak for their own interests, not the interests of people in displacement camps in Jabalia. Just because someone is a Palestinian doesn't mean his voice should be centered. So I would say that the role that you play in the media help center Palestinian voices that are truly representative of the collective Palestinian struggle and the collective Palestinian experience that is centered around the idea of resilience and popular resistance in Palestine and beyond Palestine. This is a role that if you play and you continue to play, you will finally allow us to truly reclaim our narrative and push back all the pretenders and speak for ourselves.
Right on. Right on. Appreciate that answer. Brother Fernando, you have a final
Yes,
question?
yes. Thank you for that, Dr. Baroud. And again, thank you for being with us on the Rise Up Morning Show. You mentioned earlier that Western media and Israel are one and the same, and I think that's a very important point, for people to understand, especially those of us, living in the West. And so, our final question is on solidarity, and I think that that point that you made often is linked directly linked to how much solidarity the people of Palestine may be getting from the countries, from Western countries, right? From the people that live in Western countries. So we would like to turn to the international solidarity movement with the people of Palestine. Last week, dozens of trade unions and associations in Spain called for a strike against the genocide in Palestine and the support provided by Spanish universities and companies to the genocidal settler colonial Zionist state. The strike took place on September 27 with demonstrations across several cities in Spain. This is one of the most recent examples of international solidarity with the people of Palestine in the West. Dr. Baroud, what is your assessment of the global solidarity movement with Palestine? As people who are living in countries that are providing direct support to Israel, do you think that we have done enough? And what is it that we can do better?
Thank you, Fernando, for this question. We need to already establish some rules regarding solidarity. Number one, solidarity is not replacement. You don't replace me. As the Palestinian Wafa al-Udaini, our dear friend. We introduced Wafa Al Udaini to journalism, by the way, a few years ago, and she was fully niqabi woman. You could never see her face, but she had a thundering, powerful voice, just to show you that real feminism is not about looks. Feminism comes from the heart. And we gave her so much platform because she truly accentuated this point, Wafa. And with time, she became um, a voice that you could see on BBC, and she pushed herself as as a strong and empowered Palestinian woman and a Palestinian activist voice from Gaza. So what we did there is, as solidarity outside, we did not replace her. We didn't say, Wafa, we're going to speak on your behalf. No, we created the platform for her to speak for herself. So solidarity is not replacement, right? But also solidarity changes depending on the nature of the political environment around us, right? So I don't go to an African country or a South American country and I say, please make sure that your tax money is not going to contribute to the Israeli military. What tax money? Many of these countries are actually receiving aid from Israel, American and Israeli aid, in exchange of having a particular position at the United Nations, right? So the solidarity depends on the nature of the environment. You look at you start with your city, start with your state, you start with your country, and you think, how is my solidarity with the Palestinians is going to be effective at a local level? Because what applies to Spain does not apply to South Africa. What applies to South Africa does not apply, to China, and so forth and so on. Every country has its own mechanisms, right? What I love about what's happening in Spain is the entitlement. And that's my advice to solidarity activists around the world. I don't want to take so much time to criticize those who are still kind of kind of revolving within the mainstream kind of language, as in, well, not all Palestinians are terrorists and not all Palestinians elected Hamas, and this still exists. Unfortunately, this still exists. You're kind of blaming the victim type of solidarity activist, but I feel like they are becoming more and more marginal in the conversation. What I love about what's happening in Spain is that they are as entitled as the Gazans. We in Gaza are very entitled people. Like, you think that you broke us down, and you think that we are merely hoping that you would give us some food and some medicine and some access to hospitals. No, we are still as entitled as everybody else, that we deserve full, unconditional freedom and nothing beyond that. We are still in, so we are not broken. We are not broken people in any possible way. When I see a solidarity movement like what's happening in Spain, where the Spanish government, the deputy prime minister of Spain, using the word genocide and finishing her statement, that was about 2 3 months ago, finishing a statement with, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, right? You would think, okay, this is the most we can possibly ask for a Western government. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, you know what, Spain, thank you very much. You've done your best, considering that you are a member of NATO and you are reliant on, trade and all of this with other Western European countries and all this. This is plenty. Thank you very much. We can move on. But the Spanish activists surprised everybody, including myself. When I heard about the general strike, and I was like, are you sure we are talking about Spain? I mean, what else do they want aside from the river to the sea? I mean, this is incredible. They are entitled. We need our solidarity people to be entitled, because in their mind and in my mind and the minds of every Gazan and every Palestinian, you haven't done enough until the genocide stops. And you wouldn't do enough until we hold the criminals accountable. And you will not do enough until you stop all kinds of trade and support, logistical, military, political, and economic, coming from your governments to Israel. And you know what? When Palestine is free, I'm going to push you a little bit more and say, you haven't done enough until you help the Palestinians rebuild their Palestine. So we want to be entitled, and you should be entitled as well. So I think Spain, as a Western European government, is really becoming a role model of how solidarity works. And I love this. I love the fact that they are calling for a general strike. confusing the government that thought that they have done everything possible in their power. And their activists are saying, you haven't done enough. The genocide is continuing.
thank you very much, Dr. Ramzy Baroud, not only for coming on the show for the first time. Hopefully, this won't be the last. I think we need to have you as much as possible. We know that you have a very busy, tight schedule, so we appreciate that you're taking the time to enlighten us on the recent developments in Gaza, in Lebanon, and also, as you pointed out, Gaza is probably one of the most important tiny lands of piece of land on planet Earth, because what's happening in Gaza has repercussions not only for the Middle East but throughout the world. And
The whole
hopefully,
world.
the type of solidarity that you've displayed, that you've called for, and also displayed during this program, and also throughout your books, will be increasing, and we'll see more, productive, if not radical. I don't like that term, but is something that some of the activists in the West are using because we are so desperate. Some more radical, initiatives to display concrete solidarity, not only in words, not only in rhetoric, but also in deeds with the people of Palestine. I think, as people living in the Western countries who are playing a leading role in the genocide, we have to pressure our governments, to stop the support that they're providing to Israel. And we are not in a position, and I'm saying this, I don't want to sound too judgmental, but to some of our so-called friends on the left, I think we have to remind them that we are not in a position to teach any type of lessons to our brothers and sisters in Palestine, because since we haven't won the fight against the government, imperialist government that are supporting Palestine, since we haven't won the fight against our own imperialism, I think it will be bold and even rude, paternalistic, to go and teach them lessons about Palestine to Palestinians about how to carry out their fight. So just before we close out, I just wanted to shout out again Palestine Chronicle, and also Dr. Ramzy Baroud, who is the editor and founder of Palestine Chronicle. And I just wanted to mention that he recently penned an article that we actually translated in French, that we have shared on our Instagram pages. So I'm just going to share it here on the screen so people can see. So the article is titled "Refugees Killing Refugees: Israel's Recruiting of Africans in Gaza is a New Law." So it was published last week on the website of Palestine Chronicle, that people can once again visit and donate to. As you can see here, they're currently trying to raise $15,000. It's so far they have received only 4%, but this was started yesterday or today. Not really sure. But anyways, please visit the Palestine Chronicle. You can follow their Facebook and Instagram pages. For those who speak Italian, you can read the Italian version of the website, the French one as well, and also some of the books that I've mentioned of Ramzy Baroud that I have shown the inception of this interview. I really recommend people to read them. Whether you're a French speaker or English speaker, you have no pretext, right? So yeah, once again, I was about to say marhaba, but marhaba is welcome. Now we're closing out. Shukran jazilan, Ramzy. I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we close out, but we are
I
really
just
great.
want to thank you profusely, and for all of your solidarity, but also for the work that you do about Palestine and beyond Palestine. It's all connected, as we said, and I hope to be back on your program again. Hopefully, I didn't turn you off, and they will invite me again. And
Oh, come
yeah,
back
it's
as
Not at
much as
all.
possible, man.
Yeah, we need
thank
you. We
you,
need you here.
thank you
Be
very
our
much, brothers. That's,
correspondent.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much.
again,
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Baroud. Thank you.
and
Right.
yeah,
Bye-bye.
see you soon.
Shukran.
Bye bye.
Right on, right on.
All
Yo, that was
right.
powerful. That was
That was
powerful.
fun. Without a
That
doubt.
was, yeah.
Great guess. Great guess. Again,
And
thank you, Buna.
yo, it's crazy. as we have this discussion and wrapping up, and I'm just thinking about, Palestine, Gaza, and that small area of the world, what's happening there is potentially going to spiral into a world war. If people don't get their act together. You know what I'm saying? Um, and it's interesting. This is just that small area. Not saying that is the complete cause. Like this is it's sort of
Yeah,
a
there's a lot
pretext.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretext for things, and I think that we even touched on that too. As far as I mean, the U.S. has interests. It's bigger than just it was with Israel and Gaza, but the fact that they're using that area as a pretext, I mean, it's crazy, man. But yeah, but free Palestine, man, free Palestine, hands
Yes.
off Lebanon. Um, you know, I, I'm going to be careful. I want to say some stuff. I don't know what to say, what not to say, man. Yeah.
Listen, I think this is important. These conversations are very important because we tend to forget too fast. We tend to forget too quick and move on to something else. But the genocide is still going on. It's intensifying, and we have to be up on what's going on. And like you said, really, I would say the world war is here.
I
Truthfully, when we
wanted
see
to.
what's
Yeah,
going on, yeah,
I was going to take it there.
I would say it is
Yeah.
here. Um,
And I'm saying be careful because you see African Scream and you see everything that's happening with
yeah,
our media platforms, and
absolutely,
it's a crazy time.
yeah,
What I really like about Ramsey is that, as you can see in his analysis, he's always trying to frame the Palestinian struggle, from global perspective. And actually, the first time I actually read his work was in this book that I should have shown you guys. So the title is International Brigade Against Apartheid, right? So it was edited by Rodney Castles, who's still in the land of living, veteran of the anti-apartheid struggle, one of the founding members of the Mkhonto we Sizwe, the arm wing of the liberation struggle in South Africa. So there is a chapter that Ramsey wrote in this book, Palestine and South African Solidarity. I was actually trying to find it here, but there are so many chapters. But yeah, anyways, I don't remember exactly the title, but it is definitely a chapter that people can actually read in this book, International Brigades Against Palestine. And since I read the chapter he wrote in this book, I've been reading his work, and he's probably one of the most brilliant Palestinian intellectuals. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't know that many, because I don't speak Arabic, and many of them actually write in Arabic. But at least in the English and French languages, those who write in a language that I can understand, he's probably one of the most brilliant intellectuals, activists, journalists that I know of. And yeah, he's doing great work with the Palestine Chronicle. That again, I encourage people to visit. It's updated on daily basis, if not on an hourly basis, every hour, because they're also doing live blogs. So yeah, hope to have him back soon. And this also shows us the importance of connecting the liberation struggle of us as minority living in Western countries where we are subjugated, still suffering the brunt of colonialism, neo-colonialism, and also our brothers and sisters in Palestine, right? And, yeah, he was born in Gaza. He grew up in Gaza. He wrote a book about Gaza. So yeah, definitely great intellectuals that we can learn a lot from. But I've spoken too much today, so you guys want to add something, and I hope you don't.
Nah, I think we had a powerful, discussion, powerful morning. Rise up. Just appreciate everybody, and definitely how y'all feel. Put something in the comments. Your thoughts about the discussion that we just had. Also, the website that you had put up earlier, Buna, maybe that's something we can put in the description for everybody that that views. Yeah, they can click right on that.
For sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
make sure you
everybody.
like. Oh, go ahead, Conrad.
No doubt. I was just gonna say, yeah, everybody, make sure you go check that out. And also, if you haven't yet, check out the Afro Pick magazine. The second volume is out now. You can get it for free. Go to patreon.com/Black Power Media Reloaded and get you that Afro Pick magazine. That's it. We appreciate everybody checking us out. It's the Rise Up. We'll be back tomorrow.
Before we leave, I found the chapter. So it's chapter 59, Ramzy Baroud, Palestinian.
Chapter 59.
Yeah, because there are so many contributors. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Producer's still here.
Most of them,
no doubt.
Small articles. So
yeah. Okay, no doubt, man.
No doubt.
Shout
out to the people behind the scenes.
Is our producer? Oh, okay. Hope so. Let's see. Let's see how this ends.
No doubt. Yeah, our producer's here. Shout out. We catch y'all tomorrow, man. Rise up. Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one, or the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and that babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. What we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky, like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy